In this video, I'm going to give you a basic introduction into how to use Excel, some basic features that you may want to know. So let's go ahead and begin. First, I'm going to zoom in. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the autofill function. So for instance, let's say if you want to write a list of the weekdays or the days in a week. You can start with Monday, and then you can left click this button at the bottom right and drag it. We can go all the way to Sunday. And then you can expand the width of the column by left clicking the line between A and B and just expand the width of the column. You can also do that with rows too, if you need to. Now we can also use the autofill function for the months in a year. So if we start with January, we can left click, drag, and go all the way to December if we want to. Now you can also abbreviate the months as well. So the autofill function will recognize that too. And then you can undo what you did by pressing the undo button. Now, notice what happens if you hover over the undo button. You can see the shortcut key, Control Z. So if you press Control Z, it will undo what you did. And if you hover over the redo button, you can see the shortcut key for that, Control Y. And so that would redo the last selection. So now you know how to quickly undo and redo. Just Control Y and Control Z. The next area that we could use the autofill function is if we want to make a list of dates. So today is June 19th, 2018. Now what you can do is you can left click, drag and drop, and the dates will increase by 1. So the days of the year is increasing by 1. Now let's undo it. So this time I'm going to right click with my mouse instead of left clicking it. I'm still going to drag and drop it. But notice that if I right click it, I get this option. So instead of filling days, I can fill weekdays, months, or years. Let's see what happens if I choose fill months. So notice that the months are changing. So we have June, July, August, September, October, and so forth. We could change the years if we want to, 2018, 2019, and things like that. Now you can also copy names. For example, let's say if we have the name Jared. What you could do is use the autofill function to copy it down. Now you can also use the autofill function with numbers. So let's say if you want to write a list of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. So what you want to do is you want to highlight more than one cell so that Excel can recognize the pattern, and then left click, it's going to extend the pattern. So let's say we have an arithmetic sequence of numbers starting with 5, and let's say it goes up by 3. So the next number is 8, 11, and 14. Left click and then drag. As we can see, the pattern has been extended. Now you can also extend a geometric sequence. So let's say if the first number is 2, and then the next number is 4, and then 8, and then 16. So notice that we're not adding by a common number, but instead we're multiplying by a common number. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16. Now, to extend a geometric pattern, you need to right-click instead of using the left-click button. And then instead of a linear trend, we're going to select a growth trend. And so it follows the pattern. Therefore, those are some ways in which you can use the autofill function. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a table. There's 2 ways in which you can do this. You can go to Insert and Table. If you hover over it, you can see the shortcut key, Control T. So I'm going to use Control T. And then we can select this option, my table has headers, and then press OK. So now we have a table. And a table is very useful for filtering data. For example, if I only want to, it's hard to see what's outside of my recorder, so I'm going to insert a new column. To insert a new column, just hover over the column that you want to push to the right, right click, and then press insert. So that's how you can insert a new column. Now, let's filter out the data in this table. By the way, if you want to insert a row, do the same thing. Right click and insert. So that's how you can insert a new row in Excel. Now, to filter out data, we can press this button and we can deselect everything. And let's say we only want to see Monday and Tuesday. Press OK, and thus you can adjust the data that's in this table. Now let's go back. Let's select everything again. Now we can also filter out the months of the year. So let's choose August, December, January, and July. And so you can do that. Now let's undo. Now we can also filter out numbers as well. So I'm going to deselect everything, go to number filters rather, and you can select greater than, less than. I'm going to choose between. So I want to filter out everything except the numbers between, let's say, 10 and 25. So now you could see that only the data with numbers between 10 and 25 in the arithmetic column is shown. Now let's undo what we just did. So let's press Control Z, and now let's filter out by dates. So let's deselect everything, go to date filters, and you have a lot of options, but let's go to between. And so let's say between August 1st, 2018, and let's say February 1st, 2019. And so here the data has been filtered to those dates. And so that's how you can use the filter feature when you have a table. Now let's talk about how we can remove the table. So select any cell in the table and then press Control A. This will select the entire table. After that, you can go to Design under Table Tools. By the way, if you want to, you can change the color scheme of your table. So you have a lot of different colors in which you can choose from. At the very top in Excel 2016, notice that you have this blank color. I'm going to select that one. And then after that, go to the left where it says Convert to Range. So this will convert the table into a normal range of cells. So let's press that. And now we no longer have the table. And so those are some other things that you can do with Excel. Now sometimes you may want to create a new sheet. And so if you go at the bottom, there's this button here which says New Sheet. And so that's how you can make a new sheet within the same workbook. So at this point, we're going to write the names of a few individuals. So let's say Jason Barr, Lauren Smith, Rachel Larson, Megan Williams, Ricky James, Jared Gonzalez, Karen Garcia, and let's say John Wilson. Now we're going to talk about using the flash fill function. So let's say in column C, we only want to write the first name of the individual. So let's start with Jason. Now what you need to do is you need to right click and extend. And then you can select this option, Flash Fill, and it's automatically going to look at the column on the left and simply input just the first names of the individuals. Now we can also do the same with the last names of those individuals. So let's write the first last name, Bar, and then right click, choose Flash Fill. And so that's one way in which you could use the Flash Fill feature. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is moving rows and columns. So let's say if we want to move column B to the right. Once you highlight the column, hold down the Shift key, and then move the cursor until you see those 4 arrows. Once you see it, left click, hold, and drag. So you can put it anywhere you want to. And so that's how you could move a column in Excel. Now, if you wish to move 2 columns, highlight 2 columns, hold down the Shift key, and wait until you see those 4 arrows. And then we can move it all the way to that side. Now, we could do the same thing with rows. So let's say if we want to move Karen Garcia to the top. Hold down the Shift key, and then move the cursor with your mouse until you see the 4 arrows, and then drag it to the top. And let's do the same with 2 rows. So let's highlight 2 rows, hold down the Shift key, left click, drag and move it to where you want to move it. And so that's how you could move rows and columns in Excel. Another function that's useful is the transpose feature of Excel. So let's say if we highlight the first name column, let me select everything, and then what you can do is right click anywhere. Actually, first you have to copy it. So you can press Control C to copy, and then right click somewhere, let's say at cell F2, and then select Paste Special. So once you select Paste Special, you'll see this option at the bottom to transpose that data. So it's going to convert the data, which is in a vertical format, into a horizontal format. And so you could see it here. And so that's how you could use the transpose function. Now let's say if we have some numbers, let's say 12, 15, 24, 17, and 19. We can also convert horizontal data back into vertical data. So let's select everything, and then Control C, or you can go to Home, Copy, and then let's paste it onto cell F6. So right click, Paste Special, and then select Transpose. So that's how you can convert horizontal data to vertical data. Now, sometimes you may want to save your work. To do that, you can go to File and then select Save As, or you can select the Save option, and that's one way in which you can do that. Now, another way is pressing Control S, and it's a quick way to access the Save As feature. Now, sometimes you may want to print your work, so you can press Control P to print the worksheet. Other times you may want to create a new workbook. You can press Control N and you'll have a new workbook generated. So those are some shortcut keys that can help make your life easier when dealing with Excel. Now the next thing we need to talk about is sorting data. So sometimes you may want to put the names in alphabetical order. So what you can do is you can right click and then go to sort. So let's sort it from A to Z. Now let's continue with the current selection. So as you can see, the names have been sorted from A to Z. I'm going to undo it. Let's insert a new column here. Now let's do the same thing with this column. So notice the name Karen Garcia in cells D3 and E3. And let's select Z to A this time. I'm going to continue with the current selection. Notice that only column D has been sorted, but not E. So now the names no longer match. So instead of having Karen Garcia, which we had before, now we have Karen Williams. So let's undo it. Right click. So this time, what I'm going to do is, I'm still going to sort it the same way, but I'm going to choose this selection. Expand the selection, and it's automatically going to change column E. So it's still sorted from Z to A, but the names still match. So we still have the name Karen Garcia. So that's how you can sort data. Now let's say in column E we have the age of the individuals. Let's say Karen is 25, Jason is 29, Lauren is 32, Rachel is 18, Megan is 21, Ricky is 37, Jared is 45, let's say John is 26. So you can also sort by numbers as well. So let's put it from smallest to largest. And so we can do that as well. Now sometimes you may want to combine the information in two columns into a single column. So in column F, we're going to combine the informations in columns C and D. So one way in which we can do so is using the concatenate function. So first we need to select text 1, as you can see here. Let's highlight the information in cell C3 and then press comma, and then we can highlight the information in D3. If we do it this way, notice that there's no space in between the words Karen and Garcia. So let's double click and go back to it. So after C3, what we're going to do is put a space. So you need to put the space in quotations. After you put the quotation mark, space, and then put another one, and then press comma. And now we can type in D3. So now we have a space between the names Karen and Garcia. Now we can use the autofill function to basically extend what we have. And so that's one way in which you can combine the text in two different columns into a single column. Another way in which we can achieve the same result is by using the text join function. So let's say we want to combine the names and the age. So we wish to combine columns C, D, and E all together. So you can use the concatenate function to do this as well, but this time I'm going to use the text join function. So first we need to choose a delimiter. I hope I said that right, delimiter. So our delimiter is going to be a space. Let's put that in quotations. And then I'm going to select true to ignore the empty cells. And then text 1, that's going to be the information in cell C3. And then we'll press comma. Text 2 will be D3, comma, and then text 3, E3. So as you can see, if you have a lot of columns that you wish to combine, the text join function is very useful because you can keep going text 4, text 5, text 6, and it gets easier at this point. So now let's close the parentheses and then press enter. Now, what I'm going to do is, actually I'll leave it like that. I was going to change something, but let's not worry about it. So now let's use the autofill function. And so that's how you can combine multiple columns into a single column using column with the item numbers. And we want to extract certain text in this column and put it into these three columns. So one way in which we can do that is by using the flash fill function as we did before. So I'm going to right click, extend, and then select flash fill. So you can do it that way. Another way in which you can do that is by using the left function. So if you type in equal left, now we're going to choose this text in cell B3, And then starting from the left, we only want to select the first 4 characters. So the first 4 characters represents the location of the item number, let's say in a warehouse. The next 3 is the abbreviation for the company, and the last 2 is for the size of the part or the item. Now we can use the autofill to extend it. And so that's another way in which you can break down a text string into multiple parts. Now let's do the same for company. So we can type in ABC and then right click, flash fill. So that's going to work. But to learn new things, let's use the mid function. So we're going to choose text B3. Now, ABC, the letter A, starts at the 6th position from the left, starting from the left. And the number of characters that we want to extract from that text string is only 3. And then use the autofill feature to extend it. Now for the last one, we're going to use the write function. So as you can see, it says it returns the specified number of characters from the end of a text string. So let's choose cell B3 like before, and starting from the right, we only need the first 2 characters. And so we get the number 15. Let's do that again. And now we can just use the autofill function to copy everything else in this column. And so that's it for this particular section. That's how you can extract text from cells using the left, the mid, and the right functions. Now let's put some names in this column. And let's say the names are not edited properly. And let me write a few more. So just hang on, this will take a little time. And let's do one more. Okay, sometimes you may need to basically fix the text that you have here. So one function that you could use is the lowercase function. So if you type in equal, lower, it converts all letters in a text string to lowercase. So let's highlight this cell. And as you can see, we get everything in the lowercase format. And then you could extend it if you want to. Now the next one that you want to be familiar with is the uppercase function. It converts a text string to all uppercase letters. And then you could use the autofill function to extend it. Now lastly, we have the proper function. And this function, it converts the first letter in each word to uppercase. Everything else will be in the lowercase format. And so those are some other useful functions within Excel that you could use. Now let's talk about some other things that we can do here. So we can also bold the text. If we go to Home and then select Bold, you can bold it. Or you can press Control B, and it's a quick way to bold the text in a cell. If you press Control B again, it's going to remove that. Now there's some other things we could do. We can italicize it, we can underline it, and so the shortcut keys for that, to italicize, all you gotta do is press Control I, and if you press it again, it will undo it. So let's say if we wish to underline XYZ, the shortcut key for that is Control U, and you can put an underline. Or if you want to put a strike through, you can press Control 5, and you can put a strike through in the text. So let's do that again. Control 5, and there you go. Now let's say if we type in John, let's say Williams. If I press enter, it's automatically going to take me to the next cell. But sometimes I may want to insert a line break. One way in which you can do that is you can press Alt, A-L-T, and then the enter button. And now you can put his last name beneath his first name. And so once again, that's A-L-T, Alt, and then enter. That's the shortcut key to insert a line break. So let's say for Jason Smith, if we wish to do that. So Alt, and then enter, and then you could type his last name. So that's how you can insert a line break in Excel. Now, if you wish to select everything, you can press Control A. For instance, if we select a cell outside of any table or any data, and you press Control A, it will select the entire worksheet. Now let's say if we select a cell within this data. If we press Control A, it will select all of the data that's in that region. Likewise, if we do it here, Control A, it'll select all the continuous data in that region. It won't select this data because there's an empty cell between it. So Control A is the select all option. Now sometimes you may wish to copy and paste. The shortcut key to copy is Control C, and to paste it, it's Control V. So you can paste it anywhere you want to, just by pressing Control V. Now, sometimes you may need to quickly move from one portion of the sheet to the other. So let's select a cell outside of any data. If you press Control and the down arrow key, it'll take you to the very bottom of the worksheet. If you hold down the Control button and press the right arrow key, it'll take you all the way to the right. And then let's press Control and up, and then Control and then the left arrow key. Now, let's say if we highlighted a cell within a certain table set or data set. If we press Control down, it'll go to the bottom of that data. Let's get rid of this. And then if we press Control to the right, Control up, Control left, so we can quickly move from one end of a data set to the other end. Another feature that's useful in Excel is the find and replace function. So if you press Control F, you will open the Find tab. And let's say if we want to find the word Jason. So let's select Find All. And we could see here's the first one that's in cell G3, which is here. Or we can highlight the second one, which is in cell G9. And so that's one way in which you can find certain text in Excel. Now if we go to replace, we can replace Jason with, let's say, Ricky. And let's select replace all. So everywhere we saw the word Jason, now it's been replaced with Ricky. So that's how you could use the find and replace feature. So Control F is to open the Find tab, and Control H opens the Replace tab. You can also access it by going to Home, and then you can go to Find or Replace. Now let's say if we have a huge data file like what we have here, a lot of information. And sometimes when you scroll down, you may want to know which column you're looking at, whether it's the address column, it's the city column, or the last name, and things like that. So something that you can do, if you go to View and select Freeze Panes, you could freeze the top row. And so what happens is, as you scroll down, notice that the top row remains the same. So you can easily see which column corresponds to the address, which one is for the state, which one is for the zip code, and things like that, if you have a huge data file. Now to remove it, simply select Unfreeze Panes. Now, You can also freeze the first column. So as you scroll to the right, you can always see the name of the individual. Now, what if we want to freeze both the first row and the first column? What do we need to do? What you want to do is highlight cell B2, and you want to select View and just freeze panes. What's going to happen is it's going to freeze the row that's above the highlighted cell and the column that's to the left. So if we scroll down, we can see that the top row has been frozen. If we scroll to the right, the first column has been frozen as well. Now let's say if we want to freeze the top row and the first two columns on the left. Which cell should we highlight? We need to highlight cell C2. And then let's go to View, Freeze Panes. So now we can see that the first row is frozen. And if we scroll to the right, we can see the first two columns is frozen. And so that's how you can basically freeze rows and columns using freeze panes in Excel. Now let's focus on numbers and basically using Excel with math. So let's say here we have data for column 1 and numbers for column 2. Now let's write up a few numbers. Let's say 12, 17, 9, 26, 17, 34, and one more, let's say 45. And over here we have the numbers 18, 5, 27, 46, 27, 83, and 52. Now sometimes you may wish to calculate the sum of these numbers. To do so, you can type in equal sum parentheses and highlight the numbers that you wish to find the total for, and then close the parentheses. And so the sum of these 7 numbers is 160. Now you could use the autofill feature to extend that pattern. So the sum of these numbers is 258. Now there are some other ways in which you can add numbers. For example, you can type in equal sum and then simply write the numbers you wish to add. So if we want to add 20 and 30, it's 50. Or if we wish to add 3 numbers, we could say 30, 40, and 50. So the average of, the sum of those 3 numbers is 120. You can also do it this way, equal 30 plus 40 plus 50. You don't have to write sum. So those are some other ways in which you can do a quick, simple addition. Now let's talk about the average function. Sometimes you may wish to calculate the average or the mean of a data set. And so you could use the average function. You can type in equal average and then select the numbers that you want to find the average of. So for the first column, the average is 22.86 if you round it to the nearest hundredths place. And for the second column, the average of these 7 numbers is 36.8571. And if you want to, you can basically format the cells. So if you want to, you can round it to, let's say, the 10th place or the 100th place. All you need to do is right click and then format cells. You could change it to whatever you want to. Now sometimes you may be dealing with statistics and you wish to use Excel. So some other functions in statistics that might be useful is the median, the mean, and the mode. The mean is the same as the average, so we've covered that already, but let's talk about the mode. So you can type in equal mode and select the column that you want to focus on. So the mode for this column is 17 because that is the number that appears most frequently. If you want to highlight 2 cells at once, hold the control key, and so you can highlight multiple cells as well. Now using the flash fill, we can see that the mode for the second column is 27 because that number has the highest frequency. It appears the most in this column. Next, we can calculate the median. The median is basically the number in the middle. So for column 1, the middle number is 17. For column 2, it's 27 again. Now, let's take the information in column 1. Well, actually, let's change this number. Let's say if we made that 85. Now the median changes. The middle number is 26, and everything is updated. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control C, copy that, and then right click, paste special, and let's transpose the data into a horizontal format. Actually, before I do that, let's sort it. So right click, let's sort it from smallest to largest. And then I'm going to copy it, pressing Control C, and then right click, paste special, and now let's transpose it. So one way in which you can identify the median is basically look at these numbers and pick the middle number. So sometimes you can basically just eliminate the numbers at the end. So pressing Control 5, we can use the strike through feature to eliminate the numbers until we get the number in the middle. And so you can clearly see that the median for these 7 numbers is 26. Now, let's talk about some other things that we can calculate. When dealing with statistics, you may also wish to calculate the standard deviation. So you can type in STDEV, and you can use the population standard deviation or the sample standard deviation. So I'm going to press .S to determine the sample standard deviation, and select the numbers that you wish to select. And so that's a simple and quick way to calculate the standard deviation. If you're doing it by hand, it's going to take a lot of time, especially if you have a lot of numbers. And so this feature in Excel is very, very useful when calculating this thing. Now we can also calculate variance. You can do population variance or sample variance. So I'm going to choose sample again. And that's it. So now you know how to use Excel to calculate the variance and the standard deviation of a sample. Now at other times, you may wish to calculate the range of a data set. To do that, first you want to determine the maximum value and then the minimum value. So to find the maximum value, just type in equal max. As you can see, it returns the largest value in a set of values. So we can clearly see that the largest value is 85 in column 1. In column 2, the largest one is 83. Now the minimum function is very similar. It returns the smallest value in a data set. And so the lowest value for that one is 12. For the second one, it's going to be 5. Now to calculate the range, we simply need to take the difference between the maximum value, which is found in cell B13, subtracted by the minimum value, which is found in cell B14. And so that's 73. And here it's 78. And so those are some ways in which you can calculate the range of a data set. Now you want to be familiar with the basic operations in Excel. And this is math operations such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Now sometimes you may want to automatically adjust the column width. And so what you could do is basically press this button. It highlights all the cells, and then once you go over here you can just double click, and automatically it's going to resize all of the columns so that you could see everything. Now for addition, we're going to add the data in column 1 with the data in column 2. So I'm going to type in equal B3 plus C3. And then what you could do is just use the autofill feature to extend that pattern. And so we have 12 plus 18, that's 30. 17 plus 5 is 22. 45 plus 83, that's 128, and so forth. Now let's move on to subtraction. So let's subtract column 1 by column 2. So cell B3 minus cell C3. And so we can see it's -6. And I still have the strike through feature, so let's highlight this and type in Control 5 just to get rid of the strike through. And now let's extend the pattern. And so we can see that 34 minus 27 is 7. 26 minus 46 is -20. Now for multiplication, we can type in equal the information found in B3 times that in C3. To get that multiplication symbol, you need to type in Shift 8 and it will bring it up. Now you can multiply any other number. For example, like 5 times 5. You can type in equal 5 and then Shift 8 times 5, which is 25, or 8 times 9, 72. And so that's a quick way in which you can do multiplication in Excel. Now, if you wish to do division, you could use the backslash symbol. For example, 48 divided by 6 is 8. And so that's how you can do division. In this case, we're going to divide the information in cell B3 by that in C3. And so we'll get those numbers. So that's basically it for some basic math operations that you could use in Excel. Now, something I want to show you, if you go to View, actually not that, let's go to Formulas. If you go to Formulas, you can select this option, Show Formulas. And the shortcut key, as you can see here, Control and tilde key, if you press that, you can show all the formulas that you have. So here equals B3 plus C3. Here B6 minus C6. And then if you press the Control tilde key, which is to the left of the number 1 key on your keyboard, you can switch back. And so that's very useful if you need to check the formulas that you have in your Excel worksheet. Now I know the tilde key looked very small in the video that you're currently watching, and so I'm going to draw it for you. To draw something, just go to Draw, and then you can select the color. So I'm going to go with red, and you could basically choose how thick you want the pen to be. So hopefully that is a good enough size. So let me get my drawing pen. And so you want to press the Control button. In addition to that, you want to press the tilde key, which looks like a squiggly sine wave that's very close or to the left of the number 1 key in your keyboard. And so that's the shortcut key to show all the formulas that you have in your Excel worksheet. And now you know how to draw things in Excel. So now I'm going to clear away everything. Let's press Control A, and then let's press the delete button. And to get rid of this, I'm just going to delete this column. Right click and then delete. Now sometimes you may want to use other functions in Excel. let's say if you want to find out what is 5 raised to the third power, you can type in equal 5 and then shift 6. That'll put the arrow button. So this means 5 and then raised to the third power. So that's 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. Or let's say if you want to type in 6 squared, that's 36. Or let's say 9 raised to the fourth power, that's multiplying 9 4 times, that's 6,561. And so that's how you could raise a number to another power. You can also use the power function. So let's say if we want to do 5 to the third power. So the base is 5, and we're raising it to the third power, so that's 125. Or we can do 6 to the second power, that's 36. Or, like we did before, 9 to the fourth power, which is 6,561. Now let's go to draw. And let's say if you want to find this answer, what is e raised to the second power? And what is e raised to the third power? Now e is a number. It's basically 2.718 with more numbers added to it. But to raise something to, let's say, with e as the base, you can type in equal exp, so it returns e raised to the power of a given number, and then you just put that number. So e squared is 7.38906. And if you want to find e to the third power, it's going to be 20.0855. And so that's how you could find the value of these things. Now the next one we're going to talk about is the square root function. So let's go to draw. Let's say if you want to find the square root of 36 or the square root of 49. You know the square root of 36 is 6 because 6 times 6 is 36. And the square root of 49 is 7 because 7 times 7 is 49. But to do that in Excel, you need to type in equal sqrt and then just type in the number. So the square root of 36 is 6 and the square root of 49 is 7. Let's say we want to find the square root of 144. So that's going to be 12. 12 times 12 is 144. Now let's get rid of these things. You can highlight it and then press the delete button. So let's say if you want to calculate log of 25. Or let's say if you want to evaluate log base 4 of 16. How can you do so? So let's start with log 25. When there's no base, it's always assumed to be a 10. So you can type in equal and then log. Then you write the number is 25, and then the base is 10. So log 25 is 1.39794. Now let's do the other one. Log base 4 of 16. To do that in your head, you have to ask yourself, 4 raised to the what power is 16? 4 squared is 16, so the answer is going to be 2. 4 to the second power is 16 because you need to multiply 2 4s to get to 16. To get that answer, we can type in equal log. The number is 16, the base is 4. And so we get 2. And so that's a simple way in which you can evaluate logs in Excel. Now let's delete this again. Now let's say if we wish to evaluate the natural log of 3.1. What's going to be the answer here? To find out, we need to type in equal ln, so that's the natural log function, and then 3.1. And so it's 1.1314021. Now, the natural log function, it's basically the inverse of the exponential e function. So if we type in exp, and then 1.1314021, notice it gives us 3.1. So this natural log is about 1.1314 if you round it, and e to the 1.1314 is approximately 3.1. And so e and natural logs, they're inverses of each other, as you can see there. Now let's go to a new worksheet and let's zoom in. Now let's say if you want to calculate the least common multiple of two numbers. Let's do something simple like 4 and 6. Let me put this in a different column. So this is the first number, let's call it number 1, and this is the second number. So multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12, 16, and so forth. Multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18, and 24. So as you can see, the least common multiple is 12. Now, to find this, you can type in equal LCM, and the first number is 4, and the second number is 6. And so it gives you 12. Now let's say if we want to calculate the LCM, or the least common multiple of three numbers. Now to do this mentally, it's going to take more work, but with Excel, it makes the process very easy. Let's say we want to find the LCM of 2, 3, and 5. So I'm going to write the pattern here. Multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8. And then I'm going to extend the pattern using the autofill feature. Now multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, and so forth. And multiples of 5 are 5, 10, 15, and things like that. So we could see that the least common multiple, the multiple that appears the first for all three, or the multiple with the lowest value, is 30. So that's the LCM of 2, 3, and 5. If we type in equal LCM, we can put three numbers. 2, that's the first number, the second number is 3, and the third number is 5. If we want to add a fourth number, you can do so. So you can find the LCM of as many numbers as you want to using Excel. And so we get 30. And so that's another function that's very useful in Excel if you're taking a pre-algebra or an algebra course.